Hi, I'm Bill, and welcome to my second video in what could be a series, we hope. And from my first video, you'll probably remember, if you saw it, hopefully you did, that I'm that guy who's really passionate about pen and ink. And also, if you saw that video, you noticed I kept looking at my notes quite a bit. And every time I thought to myself, stop looking at the notes, here I am looking at the notes. So today, no notes, just you and me. As I touched on in the video, I've been an artist for a long time, but a career in marketing sort of took me away from practicing art quite a bit. And about now 7 months ago, I decided to get back into it. I got some sketchbooks and some pencils and a few different supplies and some markers and started sketching and getting back into the craft of doing art. Uh, as things sort of developed, my marketing career came to a close. And that's when I started to get a little more serious, actually, a lot more serious about art and especially becoming an artist that does work for other people. But first, I felt I needed to hone my craft and develop my skill set. So I'm going to take you through that journey. And for artists out there who are looking to go on that journey and develop your skill set, my best advice is to stop thinking about practicing sketching and following tutorials so much as just start doing what you feel will be a finished piece of art. And these are the projects I'm going to take you through that each one helped me to develop attributes of my skills in pen and ink so that I felt I was capable of putting my shingle out there and saying, I'm a commissioned portrait artist, hire me. The first one we're going to look at is one of the first things I did to see if I could still be any good at pen and ink. This is a landscape that I think I did this in May, possibly late May, early June, as I first got my Pigma Micron pens, and thought, okay, well, I could develop this. This is a start. I wasn't really happy with the way I rendered the grass or the clouds, but I did feel that for me, this was a start. Up next, I took my attention to pets. We have a small farm, and next up was this barn cat Boone. And I wanted to see if, how I could use pen and ink to render fur, especially layered fur. As I was struggling with Boone, I developed a few different techniques. I think this is actually my third attempt on Boone at the time. And I also put him in a more majestic pose than the original photo, which was him sitting on a tree stump. And that gave him, we also tended to call him our snow cat because he was mostly white. So I put him in a more majestic surrounding to portray that look that maybe he's fixated on some prey way off in the. So next up, I was thinking, okay, I like drawing animals. I love animals. I love our pets. So next up was this big guy here, George, who loves the snow. And I took a look at the source photo and sort of reduced things a little bit. This is when I first started to think about refining the personality in the photo. I fixed his eyes so that they were a little more excited looking about that little bit of snow he's got on his nose, as if he's coming over and saying, look, Mom, there's snow. That bit of drool, George drools a lot, coming off his jowls there really helped to solidify his personality. Next up, I felt that if I'm going to be a portrait artist, which was my desire at the time, I also need to practice on some people. So a family friend, Francis, was next up, and he was a difficult portrait where I ended up learning quite a bit. As you can see with Francis, almost the entire thing is stippled. And stippling, I think I mentioned in my previous video, stippling is pretty hard. And it's time consuming. But you can see for Francis, he has really soft, smooth skin. That was the ideal method to express who he is. As I look at this now, I see a lot of the things I would improve on, but that's part of the process, knowing some, not necessarily mistakes, but things in the past that you could be doing better as you look to new portraits in the future. One of the difficult things was his tousled hair. His hair was always tousled, and how to express that in pen and ink. And I ended up continuing the stippling approach. And overall, with where I was in my journey as an artist, I was happy with this, especially with how well the hand came out. Back to pets. This is one of our pugs, Lord Byron, and he's a cute little guy. This is one of his signature expressions, but I wanted to even accentuate that expression even more. So again, starting to think about if I'm going to be a portrait artist, we need to find those attributes that define the person or the character of the pet. So I made the eyes just a touch bigger, and I accentuated the mouth just a little bit more to really hone in on that wonderful expression of his. And this was the first time I started using gray Pigma Micron pens, and you can see how that came out in the eyes. This was the first real experiment with that. You can see over there to the left, I'm using that in the fur. And also getting a technique to do this, especially in the muzzle of a pug who's got some gray hairs, that technique to express that without having to rely on a white pen to go over the marks that I made. And this is where I picked up a lot of new techniques to help me in my craft as I move forward. And this is one where I started to really feel, okay, this is something I could do. I could be a pet portrait artist. I want to continue down this path and see where it takes me. But I felt I still needed to have a tool set in my pocket, if you will, to be able to solve any challenge that might come my way. Next up was, we took a picture of this happy little tree frog in our backyard. And I thought, well, that's a great texture of his surface, his skin, especially his eyes, and a great way to practice a different texture, especially as I embellished the tree and really got into this old sort of moss-covered, starting to rot tree that he's sitting on, and showing back into the leaves. I brought back some stippling to show this varied texture in the leaves. That wasn't what he was sitting on, but I added that on my own to give it more of an interesting look as he was sitting on this branch with us. So you can see his chin is resting on a nice little pillow of fungus. I went back to a portrait of a person and getting back to accentuating key figures, key attributes of that figure. And in this case, here's a portrait I'm very happy with. Again, using that combination of black and two different kinds of gray fine liner pens to really highlight those eyes. The source photo from this was tragically underdeveloped. So I did a lot of work, a lot of sketches, a lot of planning out to really bring out a real high contrast, striking version of this pose, which I think is a great pose. My experience with the hands with Frank and the stippling there, you can see this is where I'm beginning to develop my layered stippling style. You can see that in the hand, you can see that on the lips and in the mouth. Another thing here that I just could not have done without the gray pens. I'm very happy with how this really bright light on the shiny plush sweater came out in this portrait, and the martini glass. Very happy with how everything came together in this really high contrast look. So that's a little quick look at the journey I took as I developed my craft to create portraits for you. This is my passion. This is what I do now. I'm a portrait artist. I'm focusing on pets. I love animals. I love finding that unique expression, that unique spirit in our animals in the portraits. And I hope you stay tuned for the next episode. After this, I'll do a similar walkthrough, maybe with a little more detail on the process, on all of the commissions, all 6 commissions that I've done in 2024. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time.